Hello again, friends. I'm going to start with a story for this podcast, and then a little bit later on, I'll relate it to my left brain development. But this is a story about what helped shape me early on, and it dates back to when I was first in the Army, back in the dark ages. But you'll understand here in a second. Here we go. Hello again, friends and fellow truth seekers. Mike Nicholas here with another episode of the Soul Unleashed podcast, where it's my goal to help you with questions you might have regarding the awakening of your soul, and particularly to help other left brain types, like I think I am, ask the right questions in our search for deeper meaning to life. Ultimately, I want to help you unleash your soul from limiting beliefs and smothering paradigms. So let's get started with the story. What I'm relating it to is how I became a left brainer, and the whole point about the Soul Unleashed journey that I'm on is that when I first started experiencing the things that we saw and experienced after our son passed away, and there's other podcasts, of course, that cover that. But when I started seeing those things, I switched back into left brainer engineer mode and had trouble believing and accepting that. And it's been over a couple of years that I've come to the point where I now believe and accept the things that I do in terms of reincarnation and coming back here to this life and soul journeys and many things that I would have considered woo-woo or crazy years ago. So this is a story about what helped shape my left brain. Back in the dark ages, this would have been 1973. I went into the military academy and at West Point, and part of that summer training was called Beast Barracks. Just a nickname for it. It was challenging, obviously difficult. And there were about 1,300 of us that went into that summer, and 4 years later, about 700 of us graduated. But that first summer, what we went through was bayonet training. Now, this was 73, right? So the Vietnam War was still going on, and all that was winding down. But we were being trained to fight in Vietnam, basically. There's a saying out there about we're always training for the last war, and that was certainly true, at least at the beginning for me. So we did bayonet training, and what that was, we had real bayonets, but we didn't stab each other with them. That really would have thinned out the herd. They gave us things called pugil sticks, and a pugil stick is kind of like a broomstick. I don't know, it's a little bit wider than shoulder width, and it has pads on the end, and you wore kind of a lacrosse helmet and shoulder pads, and you would learn to fight with these pads, but you would mimic what you would normally do with a bayonet. So a bayonet thrust forward, you'd take the stick and you jab it into your opponent's stomach or chest or whatever. Butt stroke right means that you would take you'd hold the stick with two fists and you'd push out with one hand, and butt stroke or swing, simulating the butt of a rifle into the other guy's head, or butt stroke left, or they had different commands. I don't really remember what they were, but we also had defensive commands, so block left, block right, whatever they were. And then once in a while we get real bayonets, and we had them in our rooms and everything, but we put them on our rifles. They were, I think, M14s, and we would take them outside and we would stab, these dummies, and they'd have us screaming, "The spirit of the bayonet is to kill," or they would yell, "What's the spirit of the bayonet?" And 1,300 guys would scream, "The spirit of the bayonet is to kill, sir." And, you've got to be out of your mind to want to plunge a bayonet into somebody else's body in the first place. And so part of that training is to get you out of your mind crazy, and where you do this crazy stuff. I remember one time we were standing in front of the barracks getting ready to go, and one of my classmates, Rick Altemeyer, good guy, he's passed now, but he ran over and he grabbed the branch of a tree, which was low enough for him to grab it, and he tore it off and he started eating the leaves and the branches, and we all went crazy. It was so stupid, but we all went crazy because that was, a thing to fire us up, and we got fired up. I think what happened, though, eventually, sometime during that summer, some person walking past, we trained for the bayonet training, was out in an area called the Plain in front of the barracks at West Point. And I think we trained too close to where civilians could be walking by, and somebody heard, 1,000 guys screaming, "The spirit of the bayonet is to kill, sir," and that appeared to be a little bit too warlike. And so somebody complained, and we were told to tone that specific thing down. But anyway, So we trained with the bayonet. That training went on for weeks, and it was a lot of fun. And then they had the king of the pit or something. I forget what it was, but you would go against another guy and you'd duke it out and fight each other. And it hurt to be rocked with that stick when you got hit in the face or in the head or in the body. But it was all part of the training, and it was cool. So at the end of Beast Barracks, we went to a place called whatever the place was, Lake Frederick, and we camped out there as much as you could camp in the Army, and there was an assault course for bayonet training, and the upperclassmen that were there with us, we were not cadets yet, we were still new cadets, and the upperclassmen were firstclassmen. They'd been there for 4 years, almost 4 years, and of course they were very experienced and they were very professional. Really, you see a lot of stupid stuff on TV and movies about being hazed or whatever, but there was some of that, but mostly they were very professional. But this bayonet assault course was something we were all excited about going through. And there was apparently like 4 lanes, and you went through a platoon at a time. And a platoon is about 40 guys, 4 squads each, maybe 10 guys per squad. And that's how we're going to go through it. So somewhere along the line, the rumor had spread that there was a special lane that was assigned to ne'er-do-wells or bad guys, and that our platoon had been singled out for this specific lane. It was just mind games they were playing. But anyway, we were ready to go, and we went to this course, and there were 4 long lines of people waiting to go. And the way that it worked was one at a time. They blew a whistle or something, and the guy that was being tested ran about 50 yards, and then there was a steep hill, and he climbed the hill with trees and everything, and then after about another 50 yards, there was a wall, which was made out of pieces of wood, trunks of trees, basically, and you had to climb over this wall. It was about 7 feet high, drop on the other side, and then arranged in kind of a gauntlet were 4 upperclassmen, and they were waiting in this gauntlet, and you couldn't see them. It ran through the woods, and it was outlined in some type of tape or something, how you're supposed to go. But as you ran up to each one of these guys, they were going to yell a command to you, like butt stroke right, and you were supposed to butt stroke and do that command, and then they would tell you a defensive command like block left, and then they would do an offensive move, and you would block it. And that was it. 1 offensive move, 1 defensive move, and off you go to the next guy. In the meantime, what they did to make it more realistic was they had added pyrotechnics and blanks and smoke. All this stuff was going on to increase pressure and increase tension and increase confusion, which it all did. And so Joe, new cadet, was supposed to drop over the wall, meet the first guy, do the exchange, run to the second guy, run to the third guy, run to the fourth guy, and then finish. Great. So as I'm watching guys go do this, and all the smoke gone off, and the blanks, and they had guys set up with machine guns, kind of in pits between the lanes, and you couldn't see anything really. There was smoke everywhere. So I'm waiting to figure out how to do this, and I'm watching the technique of the guys ahead of me. And a couple of them went up to the wall, climbed up the hill, went up to the wall, and tossed over their pugil stick. And they're still wearing the lacrosse helmet and the pads, right? Tossed over the pugil stick, climbed up the wall, and dropped on the other side. And I thought, okay, that was one technique. I saw some other guys kind of hold on to their stick and use the side support beam to climb up the wall, and then they would drop over with their stick and everything. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I did later learn that throwing your stick over was a really bad idea, because the upperclassman on the other side was only too happy to receive it, and he would toss it back behind him, and then when you ran up to him, he would just clobber you. You had nothing to defend yourself with or to strike him with. So I didn't know that at the time, but okay. So we started going. My time finally came. They blew the whistle. Believe me, I was no super duper bayonet fighter. I was just trying to survive. And I ran down to this little ditch and then up the hill, got to the wall, and as soon as I got there, I just decided to hold on to my stick for some reason. And I managed to climb up, hold on to the side, and dropped over to the other top, dropped over the other side and like in a heap of lacrosse equipment. there was smoke everywhere and noise everywhere. And I stood up and there was this huge shadow in front of me. All I could see was this shadow. And all I heard was, whatever he yelled, I have no idea. And I just stood there and said, what? And bam, he hit me right in the face with a stick. And I set back a couple paces, and then bam, he hit me on the other side of the head with a stick, and I went down in a heap. And so then he started screaming, get out of here, get out of here. So I figured that was the end of the first one. So I ran to the second one, stumbling through the smoke and the and the stuff going off and the bombs and whatever. Saw the second guy coming up, and I knew that I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew it was going to be bad, right? So I tried to listen to what he said, but again, no clue. And I thought, okay, I'll just try and block whatever. Anyway, I picked the wrong side of the block. Bam, he hit me in the head again. Bam, he hit me on the other side of the head again, and I went down again. So again, he's screaming at me, get up, get out of here, get out of here. So I jumped up. I jumped up and I went to the next guy. And now I was starting to figure this thing out, right? There was no gentleman's rules for what was happening right here. It was just kill or be killed. And this is part of the black and white and the left brain thing that was certainly becoming ingrained on my mind. I came up to the third guy. And I said, I'm really going to listen to what this guy says. And so I listened. He said, block left. I blocked left, and he did what he's supposed to do. He made an offensive move. Bam, hit my stick. That was great. And then he said, butt stroke right. And I butt stroked him to the right. And I hardly hit him. I wasn't sure how hard to hit him. He was an upperclassman, whatever. Anyways, he goes, you hit like a pussy. Before I could say anything, smack, he hits me right in the head and knocks me down. So he called me that word 3 or 4 times and told me to get the hell out of there. But the only good thing about all that was the third guy. The only good thing about all that, I was now pissed. And I was running to the fourth guy, and I just wanted to kill something. I had questioned what the spirit of the bayonet was, but man, I had it now. I just wanted to kill something. I was angry. I was pissed off. And I ran up to the fourth guy, and he wasn't much bigger than me. I later found out he was our first sergeant, and he was a highly decorated Vietnam War hero. He had won the Bronze Star. Part of his arm was missing. Actually, his muscle of his lower arm on his left arm was missing. But I didn't know. I didn't care. All I saw was this thing in front of me. I didn't listen to a word he said. As soon as I ran up to him, he said something, but I smacked him as hard as I could in the head, and he went down. And then he started to stand up again, and I smacked him again as hard as I could on the other side of his head, and he went down. And before he could say anything, I just started running to the end of the course. And that's how it finished. So we're all swapping war stories, hanging out in the course area afterwards. And in the back of my head, I was afraid that this dude was going to figure out who I was, the last guy, because we all have names on our shirts. But the pads, the lacrosse pads, kind of covered it. On the left chest of our shirt was our name above the West Point crest. And so he never knew who I was. I knew who he was. But that, I submit to you, however, is where I learned big time about off and on binary yes or no, and that there is no middle ground. And that's kind of how I approached life was, the woo-woo stuff that I was later to encounter in terms of spiritual things and mediums and those kind of, there was no room like that for that in my mind when I was a military officer and gone through my military career. But it was shaped by those kind of experiences, and that wasn't the only one. There were many other things that caused me to view life in black and white, kill or be killed, yes or no, no middle ground. Like the third guy said to me when I kind of hit him half-heartedly, he made it clear to me that there was no half-hearted business. It was either kill or be killed. And, I got the spirit of the bayonet, and that's what made me who I was for a good part of my life. And then when we lost our son and I started this Soul Unleashed journey, the reason it was so impactful to me was because I never questioned this stuff before. Never questioned my faith. I never questioned God. I never questioned Jesus Christ. never questioned the stuff that I was taught, as a Catholic growing up. And it was all part of, this is the way it is. This is the way it has always been. This is the way it will always be. I never questioned it. But now I question everything. And that's why it's been such a huge shift for me. So that's what I want to share with you. That's the story. The spirit of the bayonet is to kill, sir, and the bayonet training. And I survived it. Never had to actually do it, thank God. But that was kind of how training used to be. I suspect it's different now. There's so much has changed. But I look back actually thankful that I learned those lessons when I did. Hey, if you'd like to get in touch with me, Mike at MikeNicholas.com. And my website is MikeNicholas.com. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.